Well, thank you all. Hello, everyone, again. Thanks, Maggie and Gary, for that intro. As Maggie mentioned, my name is Weslyn Rawlins. My pronouns are she and her. And for those who may not be on camera tonight or be able to see me, I'll give a brief inclusive description in theme of tonight's talk. I am a Black woman. I have short curly hair. I'm wearing big frame glasses tonight, and I have on one of my very favorite shirts that says, you can't see it, but it says the future is accessible. So right on theme. I'm in my home office with framed pictures in the wall and very bright green and white background. So I'm so excited to be with you all tonight, to have this talk and to be able to, interact with you all and, just take you through one of my passions here. So just a little bit about me. I am an equity consultant. I'm an advocate for disability rights and accessibility and a forever project manager. So as someone who worked in the technology space for many years, I saw a continued opportunity to just lean in and focus on this topic itself, right? Being inclusive and designing for that in mind. So without further ado, I will continue on, and let me see here. Try to move the gallery out of the way. There we go. All right, so just to summarize what we are going to be talking about tonight, inclusive design, why is it important? User-centric experiences and just what that looks like in action and I'll hopefully be able to provide you with some resources and take any questions and wrap up as we conclude tonight's talk. And I'll try not to talk too quickly as I tend to do sometimes. So what is inclusive design? If you're able to, I would love for you all to, in the chat, uh, tell me what comes to mind when you think of inclusive design. Uh, Maybe a word or few words, whatever pops into your head. I would love to hear from you. Yes, please share, ask questions. Thanks, Maggie. All types of people, yep. Inherently inclusivity, right? So inclusive design, what comes to mind when you think of that, when you hear that? Okay. Accessibly and okay, yeah. So I see definitely we're leaning towards where a bunch of some of the topics that I'll talk about tonight, which is people with disabilities or people who have just different experiences in life. So definitely some good chatter here. Thank you all for that bit of participation there. So I'll go ahead and move forward. So, according to the British Standard Institute, inclusive design is defined as the design of mainstream products and or services that are accessible to and usable by as many people as reasonably possible. And that's without the need for special adaptation or specialized design. We'll be able to take, of course, a closer look at what this means as our conversation continues this evening. But I do want to underscore the part of the definition that calls out as many people as possible. So in the chat with that question there just now, I saw some folks highlight that. That I think is the root, and for me, my favorite part of this definition because it underscores so much that we do in life already, right? Especially here with an agile mindset and coming off of Gary's user story session, I think that with that as many people in mind, part of this definition is really, really paramount as far as I'm concerned. So hopefully I'll be able to share some additional examples as we move through to really highlight that further. So why is inclusive design important? We all know Agile's individuals and interactions over processes, and tools, and leans respect for people principles that highlight the value of diverse perspectives. Inclusive design ensures that every person, from a person with a disability, as some people called out in the chat, any gender identity, where they may be located in the world, their native language, or any human experience, can enter into a space or use a product or a service and be able to enjoy it. To understand inclusive design, it's imperative that we first understand users who have historically been excluded from product design, right? So people such as women, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, people with non-binary identities of the LGBTQIA family, people who do not speak English natively, people with mobility issues or limb differences, cognitive disabilities or neurodivergences. And these exclusions are sometimes very, very obvious, though in most cases, they're subconscious. In the not so distant past, or maybe even as recent as this month, some of you may visit some websites that use very stereotypical images, such as gendered images with a suit-clad Caucasian man in a boardroom, or a young woman who is a service professional. So these are very stereotypical images that we know to have been used for quite some time. So conversely, inclusive experiences are those that reach beyond those assumptions about demographics, to embrace the full range of what human diversity is. So by integrating these perspectives, we ensure inclusive and empathetic products and services and spaces can be designed. So embracing diverse design isn't just about meeting a quota or checking a box. It is being able to enhance those services and products to excellence. So I am going to take you through now this is not an exhaustive list, but to answer the question on the previous slide, why this would be important in a more direct way. We have a few things. Like I said, this is not an exhaustive list, but I tried my best to pick a few that I think would really resonate here. So as we kind of see the theme tonight here, we're talking about people with disabilities and thinking about them as well as just every human experience. So accessibility, which we have first up, and just accessible design in general, is often looked as a part of inclusive design, an attribute, both working together towards the same goal of making designs that accommodate a diverse range of people. So accessibility is in and of itself focused on obviously people with disabilities, but it is a intricate and integral part of inclusive design. And they are not one and the same. So inclusive design as a whole focuses on recognizing and rectifying those points of exclusion that I mentioned before. Historically, we know those to be those identities of Indigenous people, women, other people of color. And I would like to point out that many of these identities often intersect. I can speak to this myself, as I possess at least 5 or 6 hyphens and commas when I list all of mine. So this recognition often involves making designs more accessible inherently for people with disabilities who also exist in other forms of identity, right? Because we know people with disabilities can enter into that identity at any given point in their life, or at any, there's no discrimination there. So next up, we have user satisfaction and engagement. So as a factor of inclusive design, when products and services are designed uh, inclusively, users feel valued and respected. This leads to higher levels of satisfaction, engagement, and loyalty among customers, which ultimately results in positive word of mouth, referrals, repeat business. And, anytime I get a good service, I know I tell people about it. And, adversely, we'll talk about in a second, when I don't get a good experience, I also talk about it. So, this also can be attributed to increased market reach and growth. So when designing products and services with inclusivity in mind, we expand the reach to broader audiences, right? That word of mouth, and just also thinking of other identities and peoples that can use the products, and then they find it organically or through any other means. So by accommodating this diverse range of users, businesses can tap into new markets and increase that customer base by simply just being inclusive. I'm sorry. My phone is on Do Not Disturb, but that is my mother. Um, so leading again to just that positive reputation among consumers who value systems align with inclusivity as a whole. So, and with this way of living and being, so we can also attribute inclusive design to encouraging creative problem solving and innovation. When designers consider that wide range of perspectives and needs, they are more likely to develop innovative solutions that benefit everyone, not just a specific demographic. We see this approach leading to breakthroughs in industries like healthcare and architecture and technology, and so many other fields all the time. So inclusive design definitely is, again, kind of a cornerstone as far as I'm concerned to so many positive impacts in business. It also attributes to cost savings. So designing products and environments and services to be more accessible from the outset can save businesses money in the long run, because retrofitting inaccessible designs can be costly and extremely time consuming. By considering inclusivity early in the design process, companies can avoid these expenses more often than not. This also is true for reducing the risk of potentially excluding any user groups, which can, whether intentionally or unintentionally, right? That unconscious aspect of it, which can potentially lead to legal liabilities. And we never want that. So by prioritizing inclusivity, businesses automatically kind of mitigate these risks and enhance their reputation as being socially responsible entities. So in our final highlight here, number 4, which is being socially responsible and ethical. So inclusive design aligns with these principles of ethical business practices. It promotes equality and diversity and human rights by just nature. So this ensures that everyone has that equitable access to products and services and all opportunities that a business might provide. By prioritizing inclusivity, businesses and organizations contribute to building a society where everyone can fully participate and ultimately thrive, which is what we all want to do, right? So, and I mentioned an increased innovation as well as the adoption and inclusion and collaboration. These are tenets of an agile mindset. So ultimately, inclusive design is part of everything that I think we would want to do, especially as we look at project management and these different principles that we follow here. So I'm going to pause there. I just wanted to check the chat. I don't think there's any chatter there. And I'm going to take a breath and move on. Um, And I want to share with you all some data. I often get a little giddy at data points because it's those facts that help back up certain things. So I found this report, which is the Web AIM Million 2024 report on the accessibility of the top million homepages. So this depicts on their testing, and it's a very exhaustive list. They tested a million homepages, and on average, they found 56.8 errors per page. These links are included in this deck, which I will be sharing with you all for sure. But when I saw this, I kind of was aghast. Just like, wow, that seems like a huge number, far too huge for it to be 2024 to still be finding out of a million homepages, there's still that many errors happening. So, and I think this is really, getting into why I think this topic would be useful and very important to this audience. So some of the findings that, and again, I just pulled out a few, and I hope you can see this well, were headings, alternate text, links, broken links, and such. So I'll just take you through each of these where they found, from a headings perspective, nearly 24 headings were not detected. Headings are, across the board, something that's very important to a person who may be using a screen reader. So to have these not be functioning properly or not be placed in the right place or labeled properly can be detrimental to their user experience. If you were a person using and look, there's a typo, using a screen reader. Got two ends in headings today. So next up, we have images and alternate text. And this one had a lot of data here where they found on average 55.6 images on these home pages were not labeled properly. So that also is in a percent of 21.6% had missing alternate text. And just for definition purposes, an alternate text is a description of an image that appears on a website or in an application or in a presentation that, again, someone who might be using a screen reader would be able to hear that description if they're not able to see that image due to blindness, low vision, or what have you. So next up, we have low contracts text, and I promise I will make these make sense to you in just a second here. This was most commonly found as one of the main issues. This had 81% of the home pages on average had no low contrast text, and this was a distinct increase from that of last year. So it jumped up, which is also, again, a surprising fact that we went kind of backwards in just a year's time. And again, this link, it's a very exhaustive study that was conducted, and they do it each year using several tools of accessibility checking and those standards, and a million homepages, which I guess there's probably way more than just 1 million homepages and websites out there. Lastly, of the notable findings, we have some links. This one wasn't as bad. I think, just actually they increased, or I'm sorry, decreased as of last year. So 13.2% of the pages had ambiguous links, just with the random continues or click here's, which
Yes.
again
That's
all
one of my pet peeves there. Like, click here for more info, click here. It's like, where am I going? Yeah.
exactly. And someone who may not even, I'm not going to just assume, but not using a screen reader or an assistive device, that is also not an ideal user experience. So thanks, Maggie, for that additive there. I don't think I see anything else in the chat to respond to. Oh yeah, Clippy is my favorite, actually. I think I found it on some app. Clippy is my favorite, that ding 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 on Microsoft. So thanks for that, Sade. Moving on here. So next we'll talk about designing those user-centric experiences. I wanted to take you all through just some of those examples to kind of set the ground and acclimate you to some of the things that we find that are inaccessible. And this is obviously leaning very heavily into the space of people who may be blind or colorblind or have low or no vision in instances, right? But there are many instances of experience, which in the name of the title of this talk, inclusive design, we'll see that there's a lot of different experiences that could also be affected and also be benefited from inclusive design. So I found this graphic and I love it so much. I found this as part of my research and putting together these slides from Microsoft's Inclusive Design Toolkit. Again, this link is in this deck, which you all will hopefully get at some point following this talk. So it highlights and depicts that humans can have different needs at different points in their lives or under different circumstances. Not always will it be permanent or where someone was born that way. It may be temporary, where there's an injury or an illness that occurs. And it also may be circumstantial. So humans can have different needs at different points all the time, right? It is inherently the human experience. So inclusive design should be adaptable for all of those human experiences, whether it's a permanent or situational circumstance or it's a temporary circumstance, because people born with disabilities such as a limb difference or again being blind or any cognitive disability or other situational scenarios such as language, right? We know that sometimes folks don't necessarily speak the language in of the local area for which they may live. Obviously we know in the United States, English is our native language, and we have such a big melting pot here that sometimes folks do not speak that uh, English that well or at all. So yeah, definitely the bartender one. I know that one really well. That loud environment, you can't hear a thing, but you still got to get stuff done there. So this graphic, like I said, is one of my favorites that I was able to find that really just quickly and succinctly highlights how, some, not exhaustively, but some of those experiences that we as humans have, whether you identify as disabled or not, right? Because it runs the gambit of all those experiences. Oh, thanks for sharing, Maggie. Thank you. Oh yeah, I'm surprised that no one was outside mowing a lawn right now, actually, as it's definitely heating up here as well. Um, I want to next now walk you through some of the tools of inclusive design, some tools that we kind of spoke about earlier that I highlighted or mentioned quickly, but I want to just give a deeper dive and definition of some of these that you all may or may not be familiar with. So for someone who is blind, again, and this is in the era of designing for those user-centric experiences, because there are as many perspectives and experiences as there are people, right? And we're in the billions. So the first one up we have is high contrast modes. It's defined as a mode or setting within a user interface that increases the contrast between text and background colors, making content easier to read for users, whether they may be colorblind or have low vision. It Some of the benefits that we can find within high contrast modes is that it enhances the accessibility of the user by improving the readability and reducing that eye strain and making it more distinguishable and enhancing that user experience for a wider range of users. Because I know as someone who is in front of three screens currently, have two phones and an iPad and a big screen TV, eye strain is very real. So I often wear these glasses, which are blue light blocking for that reason. So high contrast modes are, across the board a beneficial feature to have, not only for those folks who, may be colorblind or, with low vision. So an example of this is within the Windows operating system. They offer a high contrast themes that users can activate to adjust the display settings for better visibility. Um, we have a ton of mobile apps like Twitter and Instagram, or Twitter X, formerly Twitter, excuse me, and Instagram, that allow users to switch to high contrast modes for that improved readability experience of text and graphics. If you are an iOS user like myself, your devices also support high contrast, which can be found in your accessibility section of your settings on your device. So not to be confused with dark mode, though, because I love dark mode, but it is not high contrast, because you can still support high contrast settings on an iOS device in dark mode. So I definitely encourage you all, if you have an iPhone or an Apple device, to explore these settings, because Apple actually has done a really great job. I worked in a mobile store with cell phones for about 6 years. So I got to know them kind of really intimately earlier on in my career. So I definitely would encourage you all to take a look at, if you have any iOS device, because they really did a great job with those accessibility settings, because these features um, not only make experiencing a phone better for people with disabilities, because they designed these things with them in mind, but these features also make it really easy to use for people who may not be disabled. So, and I know oftentimes when people have broken their phones or, cracked their screens, that assistive touch has really come in handy for quite a few people. And that's just a feature that is there out of necessity for someone with a disability, but is a really easy way to show a user-centric design that can benefit everyone. So next up, we have keyboard navigation. So keyboard navigation is a mode that enables users to interact with a website or an application using only keyboard inputs. So no mouse, no touch, without relying on any of those inputs. It's just keyboard keystrokes. So this is really crucial for users with mobility issues, who may have limb differences, who may have difficulty using a traditional input such as a mouse or touch on devices. And it's really important because it ensures that all users, regardless of a physical disability or not, can access and navigate digital content more effectively. It provides that that alternative method of interaction that complements, a mouse input or a touch input, making the experience just that more inclusive. I know that I struggle often with using just a touchpad. So sometimes I just need that mouse input. And sometimes I don't want either, right? Like I have an ergonomic mouse and it's only the roller ball on the side. So sometimes that just gets old too. So some strategies for implementing or designing intuitively for a keyboard navigation would be designing those keyboard shortcuts. I love a good shortcut, which is also a part of iOS. Um, uh, Really easy to use. You can create your own shortcuts, but for common actions that you would normally navigate, and you would only need one or two keystrokes, and and that selection from implementing the focus indicators to visually highlighting the current focused elements for users who are navigating with that keyboard. So providing like perhaps a skip navigation for links. I think Maggie, that you kind of mentioned that with the click next thing, right? So perhaps bypassing that altogether, designing something that would be a repetitive action, or bypass rather a repetitive action or content, to get to those main parts more directly and quickly, without needing a mouse or key or that touch input. So that definitely is something, again, highlighting not only for people with disabilities, obviously, or who may have those limb differences or physical disabilities that they're not able to use a traditional mouse or touch input. This is something that also is beneficial for a plethora of end users. I know folks who are gamers who really, really love gaming on their PCs or their computers. So that keyboard strokes are ideal for them. So moving on here to the last on our screen, which is the multilingual support, right? We saw in that example from the toolkit from Microsoft that situational or circumstantial user experience of having limited language. So the importance of a multilingual support system is essential for catering to those diverse linguistic backgrounds and ensuring that users can access content in their preferred language. I know Zoom has some updates that I just learned about this past like year, of having interpreter channel. And they uploaded and updated to be available, I think, in something like 32 languages, which is I think actually is probably more than that. But it's amazing, right? For someone to have access to something in their preferred and or native language and not have to kind of stumble through listening and reading captions perhaps. They just are automatically able to have that in their native language. And this inherently promotes inclusivity by breaking down those barriers and making, digital experiences that much more accessible to global audiences. Some of the benefits that, excuse me, that we can find in this is that expanding of reach of products and services to international markets. So that expansion of your base, right? Reaching more customers by being inclusive, and just improving your user engagement as well as the satisfaction by offering content to users in their native language. This enhances accessibility for those non-native speakers and users with perhaps limited proficiency in the primary language uh, of the local area in which they may live. So examples of this is in Google, which I love Google, Google Translate. Google Translate integrates really seamlessly with a lot of online platforms through a plugin which allows users to be able to translate web pages and documents and conversations into whatever language they prefer, multiple languages if they prefer. And learning apps such as Duolingo, which I couldn't tell you the last time I opened my Duolingo to just offer interactive lessons in a cool, really interactive way to learn new languages. Should, they need to for fun or for necessity, right? So things like these tools, I wanted to highlight just a few of what inclusive design can really look like in practice, and to get your mind going a little bit further outside of what you may think is traditionally an inclusive design prospect of again, I think we all went to the idea of designing for people with disabilities, but it goes so much further beyond that. So here we have it. There's a little activity planned. Just really quickly, between 5 to 10 minutes, I would love for you all to walk with me through, or walk yourselves through rather, some fact findings or just experience findings. So I have created for you all, and I'm going to drop in the chat right now, a Jamboard link. It's a little clunky, so forgive the inaccessibility of it all, right? Go figure. But I just dropped the link there for you. There are 3 pages within the Jamboard, and I've written out some instructions for you all to take a look at. But all I want you to do is go to these websites. One of them requires just a little bit more input from you to navigate using the keyboard input from the accessibility menu. But other than that, I would love for you all to take 5 to 10 minutes. And I believe, Maggie, we have some breakout rooms set up that folks can go into and do this activity and perhaps share and discuss with the group members. And then I would love for you all to come back to the main room and share with me and all of us what some of your findings were. So please let me know. I think I see some folks popping in here into the Jamboard, but again, it's really simple. I've written out the instructions here for you all to do. I'm going to try to, oh, thanks, Maggie. I was going to say, I'm going to pop out these links as well, but I just really want you all to take a moment to go to these websites and just see how you can navigate them. So the first one up requires just a little bit more, just a single step additional than just visiting a traditional website. But if you will, I will stop talking now. And I think, Maggie, we can open up the breakout rooms.
I have opened, folks, you can self-assign to one of the breakout rooms. I was gonna put them, I'm gonna change this back actually, to room 2. No, I can't. Okay, just pick any one of the room 3, room 4, or the iflysouthern.com one that I made, and just join in one of those, and once you have the link opened from the main chat, and then you can copy and paste or type in and visit the website if someone wants to share their screen within the breakout room, and discuss amongst yourselves.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be super quick. Don't think too much into it. Just kind of browse and peruse the websites, please, if you will. I think we're gonna come back here in a minute or two, hopefully. And we're gonna share some of our findings. I really hope folks can come off of mute or in the chat and share some of what they experienced.
We used different browsers. Not every browser worked the same way. It was a hard even to find the icon for differently abled. And without that particular mode on, it went into error, and that wasn't user friendly to come back. And with the icon, again, everybody faced different problems. It worked on some browsers and it did not work out. And we didn't find it as really differently able friendly.
Okay, thanks for that, Rama. I think I see some folks coming back. Hopefully, I just popped in with Maggie and her group, so I think everyone should be coming back to the main room. And it will just take a few minutes to share out again. So thanks, Rama, for being the first one up, but we'll wait till everyone's back and hear from them.
Yeah, no, that was really illuminating because I learned a lot just from looking at a couple of the sites there.
Yeah, so um
I
let
think
me
we
know.
should have everyone back. Yeah.
Okay, all righty. So how was that? If anyone wants to come off, Rama shared some things. I know I popped in on you all, Maggie. You seem to have some shared experiences. So anyone else want to just come off of mute or in the chat, and share what they saw, experienced, browsed, perused. Oh, here's more people.
Yeah, I can start if you want. We were looked at one. We looked at New York Magazine, and it was just awful. It was clear that it was just a port of the print magazine to the web page with no like different fonts and different design elements all over the place. Just just no rhyme or reason. We found a nice little statement on their commitment to accessibility, but no actual controls that control that. So that was interesting. And then we compared that to the iFly Southern site, which had a clear accessibility button and options you could choose for to compensate for your what you wanted assistance with. So I tried a few, and I learned about the ADHD one and some other ones. And the question came up, is in agile development, like how do you address including these in your like definition of done, or are these separate user stories? And I was saying that the way I would approach it as a product manager or a product owner would be to include that in all my definitions of done. Like, okay, if you're doing any user interface or website, then there has to be testing for these standards. And I'm not sure about the standards for things like ADHD. That's newer to me, but the high contrast, and there's some basic ones that are well defined as far as software standards. So that's I would have to make sure that those were tested for in all in all of the testing for all of our user stories that affect any type of UI. Anybody
Awesome.
else? Yeah.
Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, anyone else, please. I definitely want to be respectful of everyone's time here. But I would love to hear some of your thoughts before I just continue on and delve in. I really appreciate you all taking that time to do that activity.
Yeah, we went into iFly Southern or South, and the homepage has these functionality, but the accessibility is not available on the pages when you move into booking or other pages. So they seem to have it just on the homepage, but not on other windows that open up from there. So that is something to make note of.
Okay, so I think a few folks did the iFly Southern website, or you went, I think Maggie's team went in between New York Magazine as well. So does anyone else have a different experience with a different website, perhaps, that they would like to share, just to round us off on one of the other ones?
I'll go. Our group did Zendesk, and one of the interesting things about the experience was that a AI chat box popped up. And so again, I was the person that said I like Clippy, right? So if I need assistance, I do like chat bots. But when they went to click it in the screen share, it didn't go anywhere. And so making sure that like if we're gonna offer assistance and AI assistance, especially like if we want it to be a good user experience, we want them to leave that screen and get help, or whatever is listed in that box, if it's search, if it's products, etc.
Definitely. Great call out. Anyone else want to share anything else? Thanks, Sade.
I'll bite. What I can share is that just the complete what is the word I want to use? The little awareness on my part when I have worked with development teams in the last 5 years, this accessibility has not come up. So
Wow.
that is that.
Well, that's a great segue, Pepe. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that. What I'll tell you all is, again, thank you for participating in that activity and taking the time to just share your thoughts and humor me in that exercise. So there were two bad websites that I kind of disseminated between New York Magazine and the iFly Southern. So you all highlighted some of what was already depicted as inaccessibilities on those websites. So Maggie, your team talked about just they didn't even try to adapt the interface for a digital platform. It was just stuff, right? So one of the things from New York Magazine, of course, there's a ton of accessibility issues there, but the main call out is the lack of alt text or alternative texts for those images, which I think we all shared that alarm for a website, for a news website, the lack of alt images, alt text for the sheer number of images is just, mind blowing. So for folks, who are visually disabled or auditorially disabled, go visiting that website to try to consume your news would literally be a nightmare. So without those alternate texts, those disabled people or disabled users can't perceive the visual content at all. And we saw on the iSouthern, the Fly website, iFly Southern, excuse me, the actual accessibility mode didn't work. You couldn't navigate it, and some folks couldn't even access it based on their browser. So I really appreciate you all taking that time to go through that exercise to just, again, illuminate yourselves, highlight yourself, acclimate yourselves to what accessibility and inclusive design, right, would look like for you all who, are using standard machines and things like that and finding it difficult to navigate, much less someone who actually would need that accessibility feature. So just again, underscoring the importance of designing inclusively and for a user-centric focus. So Thank you all again. Zendesk and Headspace were the good ones. They were more accessible than the others, but still we of course found some inaccessibilities there as well. So moving right along here, I want to give you some examples of real life things that were born out of need for being inclusive of folks, but weren't the traditional paths. So I took a few items. I learned the story of the OXO kitchen brand, which their founder, Sam Farber, designed it for his wife who had arthritis, right? So they have a ton of accessible and inclusively designed kitchen products that everyone uses, but was born out of a need for his wife who had arthritis, mild arthritis, and had struggles with that. So that's an example of inclusive design for a physical need. We have Tom's, which was all the rave for so long, which was born out of the idea to give a pair of shoes for every pair of shoes that was purchased, giving a pair of shoes to a child in need in an impoverished community or circumstance. So I love this concept. Again, you might not necessarily think of it as traditionally being inclusive design practice, but it 100% is, right? Socioeconomic conditions is definitely one of the bigger parts, or a factor that gets left out often in when thinking of inclusive design or accessing things. And that word accessibility, of course, we know it in the terms of this talk tonight heavily with people with disabilities, but just access for anyone entering into a space or a product or a service, right? So, and I'm using one of these tonight. I chose to use this example because adjustable desks and tables were designed traditionally to accommodate people with wheelchairs, but is also a benefit for everyone, right? People who may need to stand often, like myself, like I can't sit and present ever. So having a sit-stand desk is kind of imperative to me in my functioning, right? And I am not a wheelchair user. So I just wanted to give you all some of these examples, and there's so many more that exist. I talked about Apple, their voiceover features, and there's a ton of other things. Closed captioning is one of them I use from childhood. Still now, I can't watch TV or anything on a screen without closed captions. So closed captions, obviously, we know are for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. And it also is a benefit of inclusive design for people who may need them for language barriers, or maybe it's a circumstantial situation where it's loud and you're watching a video on your phone and you just need those closed captions. So just to again underscore the entirety of this talk for me, right? Being a disability advocate first and foremost, but thinking of it in the wider space in designing for all. When we solve for few, we can extend it to so many more people, and not just those who you traditionally would think that something like that would be designed for. So I really appreciate you all in taking yourselves through that exercise, bearing with me through this entire talk. And I really want to just leave you all with an action or an ask for you to go out into, and I think I already heard some of you all saying this, like Pepe, that highlight of in the last 5 years, you haven't heard anything about accessibility, right? In some of the work that you're doing. So my question to you all is, how are you going to take action to design more inclusively? leaving this talk tonight and moving forward, right? I had some suggestions here for you. Again, those tools and resources on that next slide. But it could be as simple as having a conversation with your friends or family members, teammates or colleagues, doing your own research, going out and looking to find, those principles. Like I said, Microsoft has a very great tool on their inclusive design website that I was just perusing through, and there's a ton of others. I didn't get everything, but I definitely did try my best to give you some resources. So some of what, and thanks Maggie for popping that in there. Taking that implicit associations test or an unconscious bias class to really get that wheel turning of looking outside of yourself or what your traditional thoughts of inclusive design might be. So I'll leave you with some resources again. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I can. I will drop all the links here in a second for you all. But I really just want to underscore again, inclusive design is I think for me the cornerstone of everything. In looking at spaces, environments, products, services, anything that we all consume, thinking about how do we design for the few and just extending it to all. So with that, any questions?
Well, whoever's speaking, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear you. Can you adjust your mic and try again? Or
David, it's coming. Your voice is coming like robotic.
you're in the blockchain, David. Can you try typing in the I could hear you earlier, David, but
Might be some input issues. Or
yes. Input or output, yeah. Yeah, no, this was great. I think I tested the two resource links, but I'm sure if folks, if you search more for online classes like this and take the test at the Harvard EDU, I'm sure that'll point to more resources too. I'm sure there's a lot of resources. I've been aware of this area in software development for a while, but it seems to have developed a lot since my last looking at it, and I would not be surprised that there are a lot of teams who look at this as an add-on thing at the end of their development cycles, or oh, do we have to support other languages or something like that. But I'm hoping that there's a lot of Agile teams out there who have already incorporated a lot of this design intentionality into their development. I don't know if anyone has any experiences with already including inclusivity. If anyone wants to come off mic or come off mute or put in the chat, feel free.
yes, please.
Except for David. No, I'm just kidding. David, you want to do another mic check? Feel free.
Yeah, really.
Well, Weslyn, I think this is really good. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Lynn.
go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, this is really good work, and I don't have much experience in terms of evaluating my company's websites. Is this a service that you offer, or something that you could come into our company and look at our website or look at our practices to make sure that we are design inclusive? Is how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gary. That is my next slide here. So if you would like to get in contact with me, I do have workshops and resource guides and things that I can offer, and consultation that I can come in to offer you all, or should you have a big company, a small company, to just look at inclusivity from a different perspective, right? So I'm not an accessibility expert, though, of WCAG and DK and all of those types of things. However, looking at the perspective of, are you considering folks, are you looking beyond what you think or know to be true, right? So I definitely offer those services of consultation and workshopping, and I offer some trainings as well to just get you thinking and those wheels turning. So please reach out to me on social media via LinkedIn. And I realize I did not include my Instagram here as well, but call me, send me an email. I would love to connect with you all further. I will take a second as soon as I finish sharing here to drop all the other links that I have as far as resources for you to just get started in doing your own research and kind of exercising that muscle of being more inclusive just every day, right? Even if you're not a UX designer or developer or working in Agile or anything like that, right? So like I said, just in that call to action slide, I really implore you all, and I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes, which is by James Baldwin, is that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. So I really implore you all to go out and create a truly inclusive and accessible world for yourselves and everyone else. So with that, I do bid you adieu. I appreciate your time this evening. I can't thank you enough. This was great. And again, please reach out to me via any means that you feel comfortable. Oh,
Oh, David, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, David.
call me, call me, call me.
I put so everybody, I put the Weslyn's contact information in the chat for your convenience, and the two links that she had already in there. They should all work. So grab those from the chat. You can save the chat off. As always, with the little, they moved it to the top. Depending on what version you're on, you might see the little breadcrumbs on the top now with the more to save chat, and they might still be down the bottom if you're on iOS. I think someone mentioned that, but you should have the option to save chat. Thanks, Weslyn. That was for that. That was very illuminating. I know I learned a lot. I think this is a great topic for our Agile group. Something that definitely dovetails with Agile methodologies.